Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! Stepping into the dimly lit meeting room, tension filled the air, punctuated by the soft whirring of the air conditioner battling the unforgiving heat. Dr. Eleanor Winters, a renowned therapist with an aura of quiet wisdom, sat poised, ready to unravel the intricate threads of a long-forgotten tapestry. As their session began, Dr. Winters' gentle voice broke the silence.
"Tell me, what brings you here today?"
Her client fidgeted, fingers brushing through their cropped chocolate-hued locks, revealing a quiet struggle. "Nervous, just like every day lately. Like I'm wearing someone else's skin." "We've been discussing these feelings for several weeks now, Xander." Dr. Winters flipped through her notes. "You've mentioned feeling disconnected from yourself since childhood. Would you be open to exploring something that might help?" "I've tried everything. Meditation, exercise, those breathing techniques." A deep sigh filled the space between them. "Nothing works." Dr. Winters placed her notepad on the small table beside her. "Have you ever considered that the anxiety and depression might be symptoms of something deeper? Perhaps a disconnection between who you present yourself as and who you feel you truly are?" The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the silence that followed.
"What exactly are you suggesting?"
The question came out barely above a whisper. "I'm suggesting we explore the possibility that suppressing parts of your identity, specifically the feminine aspects you've mentioned feeling drawn to, might be contributing to your mental health struggles." The suggestion hung in the air like a physical presence. "You want me to... what? Wear a dress?" The words came out as a nervous laugh. Dr. Winters smiled gently. "I'm not prescribing anything specific. I'm suggesting we explore these feelings in a safe environment. Many people find that acknowledging suppressed parts of themselves can be healing, even transformative." "I don't know if I can do that." "You don't have to decide right now. Think about it. We're looking for ways to help you feel more authentic, more at peace with yourself." The session ended with a homework assignment that seemed simultaneously terrifying and oddly compelling. Consider what it might feel like to express the feminine aspects that had been pushed down for so long. The apartment was empty and quiet that evening. Standing in front of the bedroom mirror, wearing the same gray button-up shirt and black slacks from work, the reflection stared back, a stranger with familiar features. Brown hair cut short and professional, a face lined with years of holding everything inside. The browser history that night would show searches for gender identity, crossdressing, and transgender experiences. Each click, each article, each forum post resonated in unexpected ways, putting words to feelings that had never before been articulated. 2 weeks later, a small package arrived. The delivery had been carefully timed to ensure privacy. Inside the plain brown box lay a simple black dress and a pink cardigan, the most basic, least intimidating items that could be found online. They remained in the box for 3 more days before courage finally materialized. With trembling hands, the items were removed from their packaging. The fabric felt soft, delicate, different from anything that had ever been worn before. The bathroom door was locked, though no one else was home. The mirror was avoided until everything was in place. The black dress fell just below the knees. The pink cardigan covered shoulders that suddenly seemed too broad. And then, finally, a glance in the mirror. Something shifted. Something profound and undeniable. It wasn't about looking beautiful or convincing. it was about the sudden, overwhelming feeling of recognition, like finally seeing a clear photograph after years of looking at blurry images. Tears came unexpectedly, streaming down cheeks that had rarely known such open emotion. The next therapy session was charged with nervous energy. "I did it," came the confession before even sitting down. "I tried on the clothes." Dr. Winters nodded encouragingly. "And how did that feel?" Like coming home. Like finding a piece of myself I didn't know was missing." The words tumbled out. "I've never felt so peaceful. It doesn't make any sense." "Sometimes our deepest truths don't make logical sense at first," Dr. Winters said. "They simply feel right. What would you like me to call you when you're expressing this side of yourself?" The question hadn't been anticipated. Names had been considered during late-night internet searches, but saying one aloud seemed too real, too permanent.
"Annie,"
came the reply, the name emerging as if it had been waiting all along. "When I'm like this, I think I'd like to be Annie." "It's nice to meet you, Annie, Dieter," Winters said, with a warm smile that contained no judgment, only acceptance. The sessions that followed tracked a gradual transformation. Annie began to take small, careful steps. A growing wardrobe hidden in the back of the closet. Learning about makeup from online tutorials. Practicing a softer way of speaking. "I'm not sure what this means," Annie confessed during one session, wearing jeans and a feminine blouse, brown hair starting to grow out just slightly. "Am I transgender? Am I just a crossdresser? I don't know what label fits." "Labels can be helpful tools for understanding ourselves," Dr. Winters replied, "but they can also become restrictive. What matters most is what feels authentic to you. We don't need to rush to definitions." The first time Annie ventured outside the apartment dressed as herself was terrifying. Just a quick walk around the block at dusk, heart pounding so hard it seemed audible. A floral sundress with a light jacket, flat shoes that had been carefully selected for both style and stability. Brown hair now long enough to style in a more feminine way. Nobody pointed. Nobody laughed. A neighbor nodded a casual greeting without a second glance. "I felt invisible in the best possible way," Annie told Dr. Winters afterward. "Just another person going about their evening." Weekends gradually became Annie time. The corporate job still required Xander's presence during the week. The anxiety of workplace transition felt too overwhelming to contemplate. But from Friday evening until Sunday night, Annie could exist freely. The apartment began to transform as well. Colorful throw pillows appeared on the couch. Art replaced the generic prints on the walls. Plants brought life to previously empty corners. 6 months into therapy, Annie arrived wearing a teal A-line dress with nude heels, brown hair now significantly longer, and styled with soft waves. "I went to a restaurant last night," she announced proudly. "By myself. I sat at the bar, had a glass of wine and dinner. The bartender called me Miss, and it felt right." "That's a significant step," Dr. Winters noted. "How are you feeling about these changes in your life?" Annie considered the question carefully. "I'm starting to understand that this isn't just about clothes. The clothes just help me express something that's always been inside me. When I'm Annie, I feel like I'm being honest for the first time in my life. And when you're not Annie, that's becoming harder, like putting on a costume to play a role I've outgrown." The dual life continued for several more months. Weekday corporate meetings in suits that felt increasingly constrictive. weekend outings as Annie that felt increasingly natural. The line between these two existences began to blur. The brown hair continued to grow, now requiring creative styling to appear masculine at work. Small changes became noticeable to colleagues: manicured nails, softer speech patterns, a gentler demeanor. "Have you thought about what integration might look like?" Dr. Winters asked during a session nearly a year into their work together.
You mean living as Annie full-time?
The question had been lurking in the background for months. "I don't know if I'm brave enough." "Courage isn't about fearlessness," Dr. Winters reminded her. "It's about moving forward despite fear. And this journey has already shown how much courage you possess." The conversation with human resources had been rehearsed dozens of times. When the actual meeting finally happened, the HR director's supportive response was unexpected. "We have policies in place for transitions in the workplace," she explained, sliding over a folder of information. "Take your time to review these. We'll support whatever timeline works best for you." The transition plan was methodical. An email would go out to the team, a brief period of working remotely during the initial adjustment, then a return to the office as Annie. The night before the email was scheduled to be sent, sleep proved impossible. Doubt crept in like a physical presence. Was this the right decision? Was it too late to turn back? Morning arrived with a strange calm. The email notification appeared from HR, announcing that their colleague would be returning to work as Annie, requesting respect for her identity and privacy during this transition. Responses began trickling in almost immediately. Support from unexpected quarters, simple acknowledgments from others, only one awkward message asking inappropriate questions, which was quickly addressed by management. The first day back at the office, Annie chose the teal dress, her favorite, her armor. Brown hair now fell past her shoulders in loose waves. Subtle makeup enhanced rather than masked her features. The nude heels clicked confidently against the tile floor of the lobby. "Good morning, Annie." The receptionist greeted her with a warm smile.
Your temporary access card is ready.
Colleagues nodded as she passed. A few stopped to chat briefly, their initial awkwardness melting into normal workplace conversation. By lunchtime, the knot of anxiety in her stomach had loosened considerably. "How did it go?" Dr. Winters asked during their next session. "Better than I could have imagined," Annie replied, wearing a casual burgundy dress with a denim jacket. "There were awkward moments, of course. People who didn't know what to say. But mostly it just felt normal. Like this huge thing I'd built up in my mind turned out to be just another day." "That's often how it works," Dr. Winters observed. "The anticipation of change is frequently more difficult than the change itself." The following months brought continuous adjustment. Legal name change documents were filed. Wardrobe was completely overhauled. Friends who had known Xander were introduced to Annie, most adapting with surprising ease. Family proved more challenging. Parents who had raised a son struggled to understand a daughter. Conversations were difficult, progress nonlinear. Annie maintained boundaries while leaving doors open for reconciliation. "I'm thinking about next steps," Annie told Dr. Winters a year and a half into their work together. Her brown hair was now styled in a feminine bob, and she wore a professional navy blue dress with a tailored blazer. "What kind of next steps are you considering?" "Medical transition options. I've been doing research, consulting with specialists. I know it's a big decision, but it feels right for me." Dr. Winters nodded. "You've approached every step of this journey with thoughtfulness and self-awareness. Whatever decisions you make, I'm confident they'll be the right ones for you." The process was slow, methodical. Hormone therapy brought gradual changes. Softer skin, subtle shifts in body composition, emotional landscapes that felt simultaneously new and familiar. Annie documented the changes privately, photographs marking the physical transformation that matched the internal one that had begun that first night in front of the mirror. Work continued to be a source of unexpected support. A promotion came through based on merit and hard work. Colleagues who had initially been awkward became allies and friends. Dating presented new challenges. Disclosure was always a complex calculation of safety and honesty. Some connections faded after revelations. Others strengthened. "I met someone," Annie announced during a session 2 years into her journey. Wearing a casual green sundress that complemented her brown hair, she couldn't hide her smile. "His name is Daniel. He knows about my past, my journey. He says he admires my courage." "That's wonderful," Dr. Winters replied. "How does it feel to be in a relationship where you're fully known and accepted?" "Terrifying," Annie admitted with a small laugh. "But also freeing. I don't have to hide any part of myself. I've never had that before." The relationship with Daniel progressed slowly, deliberately. He asked questions from a place of genuine interest rather than judgment. He introduced Annie to friends and family without qualification or explanation. Their connection deepened on foundations of mutual respect and understanding. As the 3rd anniversary of that first therapy session approached, Annie arrived wearing the same teal dress that had become something of a personal milestone marker. Her brown hair was now long enough to pull back into an elegant updo, and a simple pendant necklace caught the light as she moved. "I've been thinking about our journey together," she told Dr. Winters. "How far we've come from those first sessions."
"The journey has been yours," Dr. Winters corrected gently. "I've just been privileged to witness it. I was so lost then, drowning in anxiety and depression without understanding why. I couldn't have imagined the life I have now."
"What aspects of your current life bring you the most joy?" Annie considered the question. "The authenticity, being able to move through the world as myself. The relationships that are based on who I truly am, not who I was pretending to be." She paused, collecting her thoughts. "But mostly, it's the internal peace, the absence of that constant dissonance I lived with for so long." "Many people never achieve that kind of alignment between their inner and outer selves," Dr. Winters observed. "It's no small accomplishment." The conversation turned to the future of their therapeutic relationship. Annie had made remarkable progress. The acute anxiety and depression that had first brought her to therapy had largely resolved. Their sessions had gradually decreased from weekly to bi-weekly, then monthly. "I think I'm ready to try moving forward without our regular sessions," Annie said, both pride and trepidation in her voice, "though I'd like to keep the door open for check-ins as needed." "I think that's appropriate at this stage," Dr. Winters agreed. "You've developed strong coping skills and self-awareness. You have support systems in place, but my door is always open if you need to return." Their final regular session ended with a sense of completion rather than conclusion, a chapter closing while the story continued. Annie stepped out of the office building into bright sunshine. The teal dress caught a gentle breeze as she walked toward the park where Daniel was waiting. Her nude heels, worn and comfortable now from years of use, carried her confidently forward. The park was busy with afternoon visitors, children playing, couples strolling, individuals reading on benches. Daniel waved from their usual meeting spot beneath a flowering tree. "How was your session?" he asked as she approached. "Good. Different. It was our last regular appointment." His eyebrows raised in surprise. "Really? How do you feel about that?" Annie considered the question as they began walking along the path. Her hand found his naturally, fingers intertwining. "Ready," she decided. 3 years ago, I couldn't imagine a future where I felt comfortable in my own skin. Everything felt wrong, out of alignment. Now, she gestured vaguely at herself, at the world around them. Now I'm just living my life. The extraordinary has become ordinary in the best possible way. Daniel squeezed her hand. "There's nothing ordinary about you, Annie." They continued their walk, discussing weekend plans, an upcoming dinner with friends, ordinary details of lives intertwined. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by comfortable silences. As they completed the circuit around the park, Annie paused to look back at the path they'd traveled.
"Something on your mind?"
Daniel asked. "Just thinking about paths," she replied. "How we never see the whole journey when we take those first steps. How sometimes the hardest roads lead to the most beautiful destinations." He nodded, understanding the metaphor without needing elaboration. "Ready to keep going?" Annie looked ahead to the street beyond the park, to the future stretching out before them. Her brown hair caught the late afternoon sunlight, and her teal dress moved gently in the breeze. "Absolutely," she said, taking his hand again. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." As they left the park, a young woman passed them going the opposite direction. She wore an expression Annie recognized immediately, the look of someone carrying a burden too heavy to bear alone, someone desperately seeking authenticity, but afraid of the cost. Their eyes met briefly, a fleeting connection between strangers. Annie offered a small smile, a silent acknowledgement, hoping to convey what she had come to know with certainty, that courage was possible, that authenticity was worth every difficult step, that peace could be found on the other side of fear. The woman returned the smile, hesitantly, before continuing on her way. Annie turned back to her path forward, to the life she had built, step by careful step. The journey hadn't ended. It would continue with new challenges, new growth, new discoveries. But the foundation was solid now, built on the truth of who she had always been, and the courage to finally embrace that truth. "Actually," she said to Daniel as they walked, "I've been thinking about something." "What's that?" "I've been considering volunteering with a support group for people beginning their own gender journeys, using my experience to help others who are where I was 3 years ago." Daniel's face brightened. "I think you'd be amazing at that. You have so much wisdom to share." "I don't know about wisdom," Annie laughed. "But I do have experience, and sometimes just knowing someone else has walked the path and survived can make all the difference." As they continued walking toward their apartment, Annie felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. For Dr. Winters, who had guided her through the darkest parts of her journey. For Daniel, who loved her completely. For her colleagues and friends who had adjusted and adapted. Even for those who had struggled to accept her, as their challenges had ultimately strengthened her resolve. But mostly, she felt grateful to herself. To the person who had found the courage to try on that first black dress and pink cardigan, who had taken that first terrifying step toward authenticity despite years of conditioning and fear. That evening, as she got ready for dinner with friends, Annie looked at herself in the mirror. The reflection that had once seemed so foreign now felt perfectly familiar. Brown hair framed a face that had softened slightly from hormone therapy, but remained recognizably hers. The green dress she had chosen for the evening complemented her eyes and fell gracefully around her figure.
Ready?
Daniel called from the living room. Annie took one last look in the mirror, at the woman who had always existed beneath layers of expectation and pretense, at the peace that now resided in eyes that had once held only anxiety and confusion. "Ready," she replied, turning away from the mirror toward the future that awaited. The woman in the reflection no longer needed constant reassurance or validation. She simply was, complete, authentic, at peace. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been losses along with gains, pain alongside joy. But standing in the life she had created for herself, Annie knew with absolute certainty that every difficult step had been worth taking. As she joined Daniel in the living room, ready to meet friends for an ordinary evening of conversation and connection, Annie felt the extraordinary gift of normalcy, of living without the constant dissonance that had once defined her existence, of moving through the world as herself, neither hiding nor explaining. The teal dress still hung in her closet, a reminder of milestones passed and courage summoned. She would wear it again for special occasions, for moments that called for remembering how far she had come. But mostly, she would simply live, collecting experiences, building relationships, contributing to her community, finding joy in the ordinary days that had once seemed impossible. And on those occasions when she encountered others standing at the beginning of similar journeys, uncertain and afraid, she would offer what she had learned. That authenticity required courage, but returned peace. That the path might be difficult, but would not be walked alone. That becoming oneself was not a destination, but an ongoing journey of discovery and truth. Annie took Daniel's hand as they left the apartment, stepping confidently into the evening and the life that awaited them. The anxiety that had once filled every moment had transformed into a quiet, steady certainty, the knowledge that she was, at last and completely, herself.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!